The lights of the Madison Square Garden Theater beamed down on two young men in 1998. Both stood tall in their custom suits, both dreaming of NFL glory. One would become a legend. The other would spiral into one of sport's most tragic falls from grace. Welcome to the story of Ryan Leaf, once considered equal to Peyton Manning, and how his journey with the San Diego Chargers became the cautionary tale every NFL team fears on draft day. This isn't just about football, it's about expectation, pressure, mental health, and ultimately, redemption. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just why Ryan Leaf is considered the biggest bust in NFL history, but the human story behind the headlines. Before the draft day suits and NFL millions, Ryan Leaf was just a kid from Great Falls, Montana with a cannon for an arm. At Washington State University, Leaf transformed from an unknown recruit into a college football sensation. In 1997, his junior year, Leaf threw for an incredible 3,968 yards and 34 touchdowns, numbers that turned heads across the country. But it wasn't just stats that made NFL scouts drool. It was his raw physical gifts. At 6'5" and 235 pounds, Leaf had the prototypical quarterback build. His arm strength was legendary. He could fire bullets 70 yards downfield with a flick of the wrist. Washington State had been a football afterthought for decades. But with Leaf at the helm, the Cougars achieved the unthinkable. Their first Rose Bowl appearance in 67 years. Though they lost to Michigan, Leaf had put himself and his school on the map. Legendary coach Mike Price, who mentored Leaf at Washington State, once said, "Ryan had all the physical tools you could ever want in a quarterback. His talent was off the charts." By the end of his college career, Leaf had finished third in Heisman Trophy voting. The football world was at his feet. As the 1998 NFL draft approached, a debate raged across America. Who was the better quarterback prospect, Peyton Manning from Tennessee or Ryan Leaf from Washington State? It wasn't the no-brainer we view it as today. Many scouts and analysts genuinely believed Leaf had the higher ceiling. Manning was seen as the safe, polished prospect, while Leaf was viewed as the raw talent with superstar potential. Former San Diego Chargers general manager Bobby Beathard recalled, "We had them rated very close. Many of our scouts thought Leaf had even more upside than Manning because of his natural abilities." The Indianapolis Colts held the first pick. The Chargers, desperate for a franchise quarterback, traded up to secure the second pick, giving away their third-rounder, future first-round pick, and two players. They were determined not to miss out on one of these generational talents. When draft day came on April 18, 1998, the Colts selected Peyton Manning first overall. The Chargers got their man in Ryan Leaf second. Both teams believed they had secured their future. Leaf signed a 4-year, $31.25 million contract with San Diego, including a then-record $11.25 million signing bonus. The money, the expectations, the pressure, it was all on the shoulders of a 22-year-old kid from Montana. At his introductory press conference, Leaf confidently declared, "I'm looking forward to being the guy that turns this franchise around." Nobody could have predicted just how wrong things would go. Looking back, there were red flags that the Chargers either missed or ignored. Just before the draft, Manning and Leaf were scheduled to meet with Colts coach Jim Mora. Manning showed up prepared, engaged, and professional. Leaf skipped the meeting entirely to play golf. When the Chargers sent coaches to Washington State for a private workout, Leaf reportedly arrived late and showed little interest in the process. Ryan Leaf himself would later admit, "I was 21 years old and I was being handed $31 million. I thought I had all the answers and didn't have to listen to anybody." Former Chargers head coach Kevin Gilbride reflected, "You could see the talent immediately, but there was this underlying immaturity we didn't fully grasp at the time." Despite these warning signs, the Chargers saw what they wanted to see, a physically gifted quarterback who could lead their franchise to Super Bowl glory. Ryan Leaf's NFL career started with one of the worst rookie seasons in history. His first regular season game seemed promising, a Chargers victory over the Buffalo Bills where he completed 16 of 31 passes for 192 yards and a touchdown. But it was all downhill from there. In his second game against the Kansas City Chiefs, Leaf had a meltdown for the ages. 1 completion on 15 attempts, 4 yards passing, 2 interceptions, 3 fumbles, and a quarterback rating of 0.0. Not a typo, 0.0. Chargers fans booed their supposed savior. The pressure mounted and Leaf's behavior worsened. The infamous locker room incident with San Diego Union Tribune reporter Jay Posner exposed Leaf's inability to handle criticism. After Posner asked about his performance, Leaf exploded in a tirade caught on camera. "Don't talk to me, all right? Knock it off." Teammate Junior So had to physically restrain him. By season's end, the numbers were staggering. 10 games played, 45% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and 6 fumbles. The Chargers finished 5-11, and their golden boy was already labeled a bust. Former teammate Rodney Harrison later shared, "We'd see him at practice and his head just wasn't in it. You could tell he was drowning in the pressure and expectations." If Leaf's rookie season was a disaster, what followed was a complete catastrophe. Before his second season even began, Leaf tore a labrum in his throwing shoulder during a preseason workout. Some teammates questioned his commitment to rehabilitation. He missed the entire 1999 season. When he returned in 2000, nothing had improved. Leaf's accuracy remained poor, his decision-making questionable, and his leadership non-existent. The Chargers had seen enough. After just 3 years and only 18 starts, San Diego released their former second overall pick. The statistics told a damning story. 417 record as a starter, 48% completion rate, 14 touchdowns against 36 interceptions. The $31 million investment had yielded nothing but disappointment. Leaf briefly caught on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers but was released before playing a game. The Dallas Cowboys gave him one last chance in 2001, where he started 3 games, all losses, before being cut. His NFL career was over at age 26. John Butler, who became Chargers general manager after Leaf's drafting, summed it up. "Sometimes the hardest thing to measure is what's inside a player's chest and head." While Leaf flamed out in spectacular fashion, the man drafted before him was building a Hall of Fame career. Peyton Manning struggled too in his rookie season, throwing a league-high 28 interceptions. The difference? Manning learned from his mistakes. He studied film obsessively, improved his decision-making, and developed the mental toughness to overcome adversity. By his second season, Manning was a Pro Bowler. He would eventually win 5 NFL MVP awards, 2 Super Bowls, and become one of the greatest quarterbacks in history. Former Colts GM Bill Polian reflected, "The difference wasn't just talent. It was work ethic, character, and mental makeup. Peyton had an iron will and dedication that Ryan simply didn't possess at that time." The contrast couldn't be more stark. Manning retired after 18 seasons with nearly every passing record in the books. Leaf's career lasted just 25 games. What was supposed to be a career-long rivalry became the most lopsided draft comparison in sports history. With his football dreams shattered, Leaf's life spiraled further out of control. In 2008, he took a coaching position at West Texas A&M University, but that opportunity ended when he was caught asking a player for pain medication. It was the public's first glimpse into Leaf's growing addiction to prescription painkillers. The truth was, Leaf had been struggling with opioid addiction for years. The injuries, the pain, the feeling of failure, he medicated it all away with Vicodin and other painkillers. "At my lowest point, I was taking over 100 Vicodin pills a day," Leaf later revealed. "I was completely lost in addiction." When legal prescriptions ran dry, Leaf turned to illegal means to feed his addiction. This led to a series of arrests that shocked those who remembered the once promising quarterback. In 2009, he was indicted on burglary and drug charges in Texas. After a brief stint in drug treatment, he seemed to be turning his life around, even writing a book about his experiences. But in 2012, Leaf was arrested twice in his hometown of Great Falls, Montana, for breaking into homes to steal prescription pain medication. The mugshot that circulated showed a bloated, dead-eyed man, unrecognizable from the confident young quarterback who once stood next to Peyton Manning. In May 2012, Leaf hit rock bottom. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison for burglary, theft, and drug possession. Behind bars in the Montana State Prison, Leaf was forced to confront his demons. There was nowhere to run, no painkillers to numb the pain of his failures. "Prison saved my life," Leaf would later say. "I needed to be removed from society. I couldn't stop on my own." Leaf shared an 8x10 cell with a convicted murderer. He cleaned toilets. The former millionaire NFL quarterback who once had it all was now inmate number 3,005,025. During this time, Leaf's father suffered a heart attack, and his grandmother passed away. He couldn't be there for either. The consequences of his actions had never been more clear. In prison, Leaf began working with other inmates who couldn't read. This simple act of service became the first step in his recovery. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, he was thinking about someone other than himself. I found purpose in helping others, Leaf reflected. It was the beginning of understanding that my life wasn't just about me. After serving 2 years of his sentence, Leaf was released from prison in December of 2014. He emerged a changed man, committed to sobriety and rebuilding his shattered life. Ryan Leaf's redemption story is perhaps more impressive than any touchdown pass he ever threw. Following his release from prison, Leaf committed fully to recovery. He became involved with Transcend Recovery Community, eventually becoming a program ambassador, helping others battling addiction. In 2019, 21 years after being drafted, Leaf was hired by ESPN as a college football analyst, a remarkable comeback for someone who had fallen so far. He married Anna Kleinsorg, a former volleyball player, and they welcomed a son, MacGyver. The family stability that had eluded him for so long finally became reality. Leaf began traveling the country as a motivational speaker, sharing his story of failure and redemption with honesty and vulnerability. He specifically focused on speaking to college athletes about mental health and the pressures of high-level sports. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder during my recovery, Leaf has shared. Understanding my mental health has been crucial to my sobriety and rebuilding my life. In April 2020, Leaf joined the Pac-12 network as a football analyst, coming full circle to the conference where he had starred as a college player. Today, Leaf is over 8 years sober. His Twitter bio now reads, "Still trying to get it right, not to be right." What is Ryan Leaf's ultimate legacy in football? He remains by most measures the biggest draft bust in NFL history. The Chargers wouldn't find their franchise quarterback until Phillip Rivers in 2004. The shadow of the Leaf selection loomed over the franchise for years. But beyond the failed potential, Leaf's story has become something more important, a powerful lesson about mental health in sports. I think my story resonates because it's the ultimate cautionary tale, Leaf has said, but it's also a story that shows it's never too late to change your life. NFL teams now put as much emphasis on psychological evaluations as physical ones. The Leaf factor is considered in every draft room across the league. For fans, Leaf's journey humanizes the young men we watch on Sundays. Behind the helmets and jerseys are people dealing with pressure, expectations, and sometimes mental health challenges. Leaf himself now advocates for greater mental health awareness in sports. We need to eliminate the stigma around asking for help. I was too proud, too afraid to admit I was struggling. That pride cost me everything. From the heights of draft day to the depths of a prison cell, Ryan Leaf's journey represents one of sports' most dramatic rise and fall stories. But it doesn't end there. Today's Ryan Leaf, sober, reflective, and committed to helping others, may be making a greater impact than the quarterback version ever could have. When asked if he would change anything about his past, Leaf gives a surprising answer. "I'm not sure I would. My experiences, as painful as they were, have given me a purpose I never had before." The next time you watch the NFL draft and see those young men in their suits, dreams in their eyes, remember Ryan Leaf. Remember that behind every jersey is a human being facing pressures we can't imagine. And remember that even from the deepest failures can come the most meaningful redemption. Because while Ryan Leaf may represent the biggest bust in NFL history, his greatest victory had nothing to do with football. It was finding his way back from rock bottom and helping others do the same.